Isn't that against the rules?
It is. And I'd appreciate if you don't tell Headmistress Bloodgood.
If there's one toy company that really knows how to breathe new life into its brands on the big screen, it's Mattel, and now they're setting their sights on another one of their iconic franchises. This time, the focus is on Monster High, the wildly popular multimedia doll line that mixes classic horror characters with high school drama in a way that fans just can't get enough of. The franchise has already been turned into an animated series, over a dozen animated films, and even a couple of live-action TV movies, so the idea of a theatrical live-action adaptation was bound to happen eventually. And now director Gerard Johnstone is previewing what his vision for the Monster High movie could look like. It's a fascinating choice because Johnstone isn't coming out of nowhere. He first made a name for himself with the horror comedy Housebound, which got him noticed internationally, and then he really hit it big with Megan, a viral AI doll horror hit that became a pop culture phenomenon. He is even co-writing and directing Megan 2.0, so his track record with blending creepy ideas and dark humor is already pretty strong. So when Mattel tapped him for Monster High, it actually made perfect sense. During an interview with Screen Rant's Ash Crossan while promoting Megan 2.0, Johnstone opened up a little about the new project. He explained that things are still in the very early stages since he was only hired recently, but what's exciting is that both Mattel and Universal have given him the complete creative freedom to reinterpret the characters however he wants. He even mentioned that he's found a way into those characters and that the franchise's world is really rich for storytelling. That's pretty important because Monster High has such a unique identity. It's all about the teenage offspring of classic monsters like Dracula and Frankenstein, and although it's rooted in a toy line, the stories have always been about fitting in, being different, and finding your place in the world. Johnstone, who says he grew up loving horror and comedy, also admitted that part of the appeal for him was getting to play with those old-school Universal monster vibes. He said that while Megan leaned more into sci-fi, he's always loved the gothic, spooky characters from the Universal catalog, and this film feels like a chance to work in that sandbox in a fresh way. So what does all of this actually mean for the upcoming Monster High movie? For starters, Johnstone is basically getting the same kind of creative trust that Greta Gerwig had with Barbie. That movie was Mattel Films' first big theatrical home run, making over $1.4 billion worldwide and earning multiple Oscar nominations, so the studio has clearly realized that the best way to handle its brands is to let bold filmmakers bring their own vision instead of forcing everything into a generic template. Giving Johnstone the same kind of freedom could end up paying off in the same way. It's also happening at a really interesting time for Mattel Films. The company has been relaunching Monster High itself, and that relaunch has been doing pretty well. The two live-action movies that dropped on Paramount Plus and Nickelodeon got a positive reception, and the toy line has been regaining its momentum. At the same time, Mattel Films is actively building out its slate with a bunch of adaptations. In addition to Monster High, they're working on a Masters of the Universe reboot, a Bob the Builder movie starring Anthony Ramos, and about 15 other projects. So in a way, Monster High is both another attempt to capitalize on their brand library and also a chance to expand into a spookier corner of the Mattel universe. Now, what's especially intriguing about Johnstone's involvement is how he might handle the monster tropes. The Universal monsters have had a pretty mixed run lately. The Invisible Man was a critical and commercial success, but other attempts like the Wolfman reboot and The Last Voyage of the Demeter didn't exactly take off. Because people love the iconography of monsters but don't always respond to traditional retellings. Johnstone has shown that he knows how to twist genre conventions into something unexpected, which could help Monster High stand out from all of those other gothic monster projects that came and went. Another thing to keep in mind is that Johnstone's balance of horror and comedy really fits the vibe of Monster High. It's not supposed to be terrifying, it's supposed to be spooky fun with heart and humor. His style might be exactly what's needed to make it appeal to both longtime fans and newcomers who just want a clever, entertaining movie. Much like Gerwig did with Barbie, he seems to be aiming to take what could have been a straightforward adaptation and turn it into something that speaks to a much broader audience. That brings us to the bigger picture. If this live-action Monster High is successful, it's not just going to be a one-off. Considering there are already so many animated films and spin-offs, it's not hard to imagine Universal and Mattel setting it up as a full trilogy. We already know Mattel likes to play the long game when it comes to its franchises, and given how big the Barbie effect was, they're probably hoping for lightning to strike twice. So let's talk about the possibility of a third movie happening. If Johnstone's film kicks things off with a strong first installment, then a sequel would be inevitable because Mattel would want to expand on the fanbase. And once you've got 2 movies, you almost always aim for a third to round it out into a proper trilogy. That means we could be looking at a Monster High trilogy that grows alongside its characters. The first movie might introduce the world and characters like Draculaura, Frankie Stein, and Clawdeen Wolf in a grounded but stylized way. A second could dig deeper into the conflicts between the monster world and the human world, maybe with higher stakes or a villain that ties into the Universal Monsters legacy. And by the time a third movie rolled around, the story could go full epic, something like a Monster High saves the day kind of showdown that mixes personal growth with big-scale spectacle. It wouldn't be surprising if Mattel and Universal are already thinking ahead in that direction, because it's rare these days for a studio to launch a single film without considering franchise potential. With Monster High's long history and its huge built-in fan base, the potential for sequels and even spin-offs is massive, and since Johnstone has already proven he can handle sequels with Megan 2.0, he might be the kind of director who could shepherd a full trilogy while keeping the tone consistent. So even though the Monster High movie is just in the early stages right now, everything about this update makes it feel like the franchise is in really good hands. Johnstone clearly loves horror, he understands comedy, and he respects the legacy of these characters, while still being excited to reinvent them. If Mattel continues to give him the freedom they've promised, fans could be looking at a movie that not only captures the fun of the dolls and animated shows, but also pushes the franchise into a bold new era. And if that first film lands the way Mattel hopes, don't be surprised if a second and third Monster High movie follow not too far behind. If the trilogy does move forward, another big question fans will definitely ask is who could join the cast by the time we reach a third Monster High movie. Because even though the first 2 films would probably focus on core characters like Frankie, Clawdeen, and Draculaura, a third movie is the perfect time to introduce fresh faces. Someone like Jenna Ortega, who already has a huge following from Wednesday and fits that spooky yet relatable vibe, could make a great new ghoul. Or maybe a rising star like Jacob Tremblay, who's grown into more mature roles, could play a quirky monster student. And it wouldn't be surprising if Mattel went after a big-name actor for a faculty or villain role. Imagine someone like Timothée Chalamet stepping in as a mysterious new monster, or even Zendaya taking on a glamorous but slightly sinister character. The third film could be when the franchise really broadens its star power, pulling in both young rising talent and established names to keep the world feeling bigger and more exciting. Pulling in both young rising talent and established names to keep the world feeling bigger and more exciting. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to stay in the loop, and if you want, you can share your thoughts about this video in the comments.